Hi, welcome back to our Starting Solid series. I'm Jen, pediatric nurse practitioner, and we've reached one of my favorite phases to discuss, the 7 to 9 month transition when babies are getting more texture, more diverse foods, and more exciting adventures in food. If you're new to the series, definitely check out our previous videos. Each video builds on the last, so you'll get the most benefit from watching in order. Today we're talking about texture progression, and here's why this phase is so critical. There's actually a window of opportunity for introducing more complex textures. Babies who do not experience these very textures during the 7 to 9 month period actually become more texture adverse as they get older, making feeding challenges more common with those toddlers. I also see many parents get nervous about moving beyond smooth purees. They're worried about choking. They're not sure what textures are appropriate. They don't know how to encourage self-feeding without making a huge mess. So this video will give you the confidence to navigate this transition safely and successfully. We'll cover exactly when and how to advance textures, how to encourage your baby's developing feeding skills, and how to manage this messier phase productively. By the end of today's video, you'll understand how to support your baby's oral motor development while keeping them safe and well-nourished. Okay, before we advance textures, let's make sure your baby is actually showing the developmental signs of readiness. These are different from the initial readiness signs we discussed in video 1. These include 1, mastery of smooth purees. Your baby can efficiently move those purees from the front of their mouth to the back and swallow without excessive spitting up or gagging. 2 would be developmental chewing motions. Even without teeth, you'll see them moving their jaw up and down when they're eating. This munching motion is how they'll learn to break down more complex textures. Number 3 would be increased interest in self-feeding. They're reaching for the spoon. They're trying to grab the food from their bowl and bringing their hands to their mouth deliberately. 4 would be better trunk control. They can sit steadily in the high chair without slumping over, giving them better control for managing different textures and the accessibility to feed themselves. Number 5 would be tongue lateralization. This is a big one. You'll notice they can move the tongue from side to side in their mouth, not just front to back. This is important for managing those lumps and pieces and moving that food into their gums where they can match it. Age considerations. Most babies show these signs between 6.5 and 8 months. But remember, not every baby is the same, and you have to watch your own baby for their individual readiness. What if your baby isn't showing signs of readiness? Continue with smooth purees and keep offering those opportunities to practice. Some babies need a few weeks to develop these skills, and that's completely normal and okay. The big red flag would be if your baby is 9 months old and still gagging excessively on the smooth purees or hasn't developed those chewing motions. And if that's the case, you need to speak with your pediatrician so they can recommend an evaluation by a feeding specialist. Now let's walk through the texture progression, step by step. Think of this as a ladder. You want to move gradually and not skip steps. Stage 1 would be the smooth purees with tiny little lumps. They start making those purees slightly less smooth, mashed bananas, mashed avocados. Instead of pureeing completely, use a fork. Mix the small, soft lumps into otherwise smooth purees. This is a very gradual step up from the smooth purees. Think oatmeal with tiny soft fruit pieces, smooth sweet potatoes with a few little lumps in there. Stage 2 would be the thicker purees with soft pieces inside. Increase both thickness and lump size, but food should still be mashable with gentle tongue pressure or the mashing motion with their jaw. Examples of that could be mashed potatoes, thick yogurt with tiny fruit bits, well-cooked pasta pieces in sauce. Stage 3 would be soft, mashable finger foods where you can hand them something that they can break apart easily, whether that's an overcooked carrot, an overcooked strip of sweet potato, very ripe pear pieces, soft steamed broccoli florets, scrambled eggs. Stage 4 would be foods that require more chewing. Still soft, but requiring more deliberate chewing motions, such as cooked chicken pieces, pasta shapes, toast strips, and soft cheese cubes. The progression timeline could be fast or slow depending on your baby, but typically spend about 1 to 2 weeks at each stage. Let your baby's skill and comfort level guide you. Some babies will advance more quickly, and some need more time each level trying to master that skill. Key principle would be always offer foods at slightly above your current baby's skill level, but never more than one stage ahead. Mixed meals can be great at this point. You can offer different textures within the same meal. For example, smooth yogurt alongside soft finger foods. That gives your baby an opportunity to practice, but also gives them a choice. Let's talk about their pincher grasp and the development of self-feeding or baby-led weaning. This is such a fun stage because your baby's really exploring their environment with their hands and their mouth. It can be messy, but it's exciting at the same time. During the 7-month period, your baby is developing their pincher grasp from big whole hand movements. At around 7 months, where they'll grab food with their whole fist. Larger pieces are helpful because they can gnaw on their fist with it. By 8 months, they're starting to get a little bit better with their pincher grasp. They'll pick up smaller pieces. But at 9 months, they get even better. They're deliberately picking up small, soft pieces between their finger and their thumb. You want to make sure your baby is progressing and having those opportunities for success. So offer appropriately sized finger foods for the stage of your baby, about the size of your fist for younger babies, if you're letting them baby-led wean, and then let them practice with smaller pieces as they get a little bit older and more developmentally ready for those actual pincher grasp foods. Start by spoon feeding your baby and letting them have a preloaded spoon where you've already loaded the spoon up with the food, and then you hand them the spoon and then they feed themselves. This teaches them the motion of bringing a spoon to their mouth before they have to master loading it themselves. Think early stages of finger foods would be long strips they can hold and gnaw, like toast or well-cooked vegetables and fruit strips. Next stage would be soft, small pieces they can practice picking up, like pea-sized soft foods. An advanced stage would be softer pieces that they'd have to be more refined with their pincher grasp, such as small pasta, soft berries cut in half. And then it can be messy. Don't worry, have a spill mat on the ground. You might get 30% of that food into their actual mouth, but it's all part of the learning process. Let's talk portion sizes next. So many parents think they're doing something wrong because their baby seems to be playing with more food than they're actually ingesting. And that's completely normal. The typical portion size for 7 to 9 months would be maybe a quarter of a cup total, increasing gradually as they get older and more efficient. But if you can get a quarter of a cup of food in there, that's awesome. You're doing amazing. Start with 3 to 5 pieces on their tray at a time so they're not overwhelmed and think it's just a play mat. But those little opportunities will give them more efficiency, and then you can put more as they continue to eat those little pieces. Purees could be 1 to 3 tablespoons. Great. Depending on what else is offered, that could be all you need to do. Try by the time they're 9 months to get 3 actual meals in, plus 1 to 2 snacks, depending on when they're taking their milk. But milk feeds are still happening in between each solid opportunity. Success at this point would look like your baby's interested in foods. They're experimenting with self-feeding, even if they're messy. They're accepting new textures without excessive gagging. Now remember, gagging is normal in the beginning especially, and there is a difference between gagging and choking. We talked about that in the previous video. So if you need to know that, go back and listen to that one. But we want to make sure your baby's maintaining the weight gain. They also need to be pleasant meal times, not battles. Remember, your baby knows when they're full and when they're done, so follow their cues. Some babies are more morning eaters, some are more night eaters. That's okay. They could eat like a horse at one meal and then pick at the next one. That's okay. Keep offering. And you have immediate acceptance of all new textures. Again, that's not going to happen. They're learning and developing and figuring out these textures as they like them, and you're not always going to be successful. Many parents worry that when their previous good eater seems to eat less during this transition, and it's normal because self-feeding is less efficient. They get on their hands more and on their face, and not as much goes in their mouth. They're expending energy learning new skills, so they might not eat as much because they're practicing. They're naturally becoming more selective as they develop preferences. That's normal. And their milk intake is probably still pretty high, so that's where most of their calories are actually coming from. When to be concerned would be if you see significant weight loss, you see complete refusal of solids for more than a week, or any signs of dehydration or malnutrition. Watch those diapers. You have to be aware that your baby will have preferences one way or another, depending on the meal. They might be more adventurous during lunchtime than they are at dinner as they're getting tired and more fussy. So follow their lead. Rather than forcing predetermined amounts, offer amounts that you feel like would be appropriate, but don't stress if they're not taking everything. So what about the mess? Mess is inevitable when you're feeding a baby, but here's the difference between okay mess and dangerous mess. If your baby has food on their hands, face, clothing, all from self-feeding, you're doing a good job. If your baby is dropping food while learning to self-feed, that's expected. If they're exploring their textures with their hands before eating it by mashing things up and then putting it in their mouth, great. They're experimenting, they're learning. Some food will end up on the floor and they will smear and squish on the high chair as they explore their foods and textures. That's okay. Concerning behaviors would be deliberately throwing the food on the floor repeatedly. This might indicate they're done eating. Refusal to touch food on their hands or on their mouth, excessive gagging, or distress when changing new textures, only wanting to play with food without actually putting anything to their mouth, or signs of fear or anxiety around those meal times. If any of that happens, you reach out to your pediatrician and you see if we need to get intervention with some speech therapy or OT. Managing the mess is something completely new for new parents. Use a large splat mat under the high chair. Keep cleanup supplies handy, but don't be washing your baby's hands after every bite. Let them explore. Don't panic, don't stress them out. Dress your baby in clothes that you don't care if they get messy or stained. Take photos. The messy phase doesn't last forever, and you're going to want to see that smeared spaghetti sauce all over their face, their bowl of spaghetti on their head. It's fun after the moment has passed. Remember that exploration is part of development, so we don't want to stop them to a point. It's okay to end the meal if your baby is clearly just playing and no longer eating. You can gently redirect the throwing while still allowing exploration. Keep mealtimes pleasant, but don't let them just become a free-for-all playtime. When babies touch and squeeze and explore food, they're actually learning about textures, temperatures, properties. This sensory experience actually supports their willingness to eat these foods later. So we talked about the difference between gagging and choking in the previous video, but now that we're talking about advancing textures, let's go through the okay foods and the not okay foods. Avoid the choking hazard foods, which would include whole grapes, whole cherry tomatoes. Always cut them lengthwise and into quarters. Nuts and seeds. Avoid whole pieces. Only nut butters should be given at this point, not the chunky ones. Hard raw vegetables like carrots and celery should be cooked until they're very soft, or you can grate them. Round, firm foods like hot dogs or olives, large berries, they should all be cut up very small. Sticky foods like globs of peanut butter and thick caramel or taffy. Those are choking hazards because they can't get them smooth enough before they try to swallow. Any hard candies or gum, not appropriate for anyone under the age of 3. Foods that are okay, that can require some modification, would be apples. You can cook your apples until they're soft, or you can grate them. Avoid large, hard pieces of cut apples. Popcorn, wait until they're 4 years old. Those kernels can get a little hard to chew, and then there's a choking hazard. Cheese. Offer it in small, soft pieces, or shredded cheese is great. Bread, toast it, and then cut it into strips. Don't give them large, doughy pieces. Safe textures would include steamed vegetables until they're easily mashable. I always tell my parents, put them in an Instant Pot and then overcook them. You can cut up round foods into small pieces or strips and offer thin spreads of nut butter on your pieces of toast or a soft cooked piece of fruit, but not big globs. You always remove the pits and seeds and tough skins from anything you're giving them. and ensure your meat that you're giving them is tender and cut up appropriately. I like to have shredded meats that are then chopped up finely, kind of like minced meats. Size guides from 7 to 8 months. Food should be larger than a baby's fist, so it's harder to fully stuff in their mouth, or smaller than their pinky nail. It's a baby's pinky nail, not yours. 8 to 9 months, they can handle soft pea-sized foods as they develop their pincher grasp. And supervision is always key. You always want to be in the room while they're eating, watching every piece that goes into their mouth. It's important to know CPR. If you don't yet, reach out to the Red Cross and see if you can get a quick class, or even do a YouTube quick search, and you can learn how to do choking CPR for babies. But don't let fear overwhelm you and prevent you from exploring these new textures. Remember, gagging is okay. That's protective, and that's key to learning at this age. But true choking is actually silent. You're not going to hear them when they're choking. So that's why you have to supervise every bite and make sure that you're not turning colors and they're not panicked. Okay, so most parents worry about the nutrition stage of things at this age. But you also have to remember not to give your baby the same things over and over. Variety is key in anyone's diet. So let's talk about how we can get the nutrition for a baby. For 7 to 9 months, the priority remains iron. Iron is critical, and we want to continue to offer iron-rich foods daily. We talked about iron-rich foods in the previous video as well. Variety. Aim for different colors, textures, food groups over the week, not necessarily each meal. Healthy fats are important for growth. Think avocado, olive oils, nut butters. They all support brain development. Then we also need to make sure we're continuing our milk feeds. Breast milk or formula is still the #1 provider of nutrition at this age, and you want to aim for at least 24 ounces in a 24-hour period. How a balanced meal could look would be having a protein source. Could be eggs, shredded meats, fish, beans, tofu, iron-rich foods, even if it's just a sprinkle of iron-fortified cereal. Fruit or vegetable for vitamins and fiber, and healthy fats like avocado, olive oil, or nut butter. Think weekly menu plans, not necessarily daily perfection, because it's fine. You're going to have off days when you're going out to the park and you can't think of some good variety to handle at every meal. That's fine. Signs of adequate nutrition would be a steady weight gain, normal energy levels, regular wet diapers, appropriate bowel movements, and generally being happy. A happy baby is a fed baby. When you might need supplements, according to your pediatrician, they might continue to recommend vitamin D if you're still breastfeeding. But most nutrients should start coming from food and milk still. Milk is still about 60% of their calories and 40% from solids. This naturally shifts as they get more efficient with their eating. We don't ever drastically reduce milk to force the solid intake. Do it gradually if you're worried they're getting too many milk calories and not enough solid food calories. Just cut out maybe an ounce per bottle. Work with your pediatrician by bringing up any food concerns you might have with your well checks, or reach out to them independent of those well checks if you're worried and you don't want to wait until that next one. Check growth charts, development assessments. They are all so much better at predicting your baby's ability to get their nutrition than just looking at a day-to-day plan that you might have. Let's talk about some of the most common challenges I see during this transition, and that includes baby gags excessively with new textures. That is common for a lot of babies, but the solution would be to slow down your progression. Go back to the previous texture stage for a few more days, and then try a slower advancement of those textures and new foods. Some babies are more sensitive and they need more graduation of those transitions. The next challenge, baby refuses finger foods and only wants purees. Start by putting tiny pieces in familiar purees so they get a little bit more texture within those purees that they're familiar with. And let them explore finger foods without pressure to eat them. Put them on the tray and eat with your baby so they can see that you are actually putting food in your mouth, and they might want to copy you that way. The next challenge would be if baby throws all the finger foods on the floor. This might indicate that they're full, they're bored, or they're just not developmentally ready. Try offering finger foods when they're hungrier or try reducing the quantity offered. Like I said, they can get overwhelmed if the whole tray is full, and then they think it's just a play mat. The next challenge would be baby seems to be eating less overall. This is normal during skill development. You want to watch the weight gain and the energy levels during the day rather than just monitoring each day how many bites they're taking. They should still be getting adequate milk feeds, and that should be your reliance on some days, but watch the progression. The next challenge would be the baby only wants to eat certain foods or textures. The solution to that is just by offering new textures and new foods without pressure. It can take a lot of exposures to one food before they actually accept it. Do include at least one food that you know that they'll eat at each meal, so you can have that reassurance that they are eating something. The next challenge would be meal times have become stressful battles. Take a step back, reduce the pressure, make meals more pleasant, eat with your baby, and remember your job is to offer appropriate foods, not to make them eat them. When do you want to seek professional help? If there's excessive gagging that doesn't improve with the slower progression. If there's a complete refusal of all finger foods or textures, still by 9 months. If you're worried about weight loss or poor diaper counts, any sign of oral motor difficulties or swallowing problems where they can't get food to move back to the back of their mouth and they keep spitting it out, or if there is any severe anxiety or distress around those meal times. Talk to your pediatrician, know that there are therapists out there who specialize in this phase, and every phase requires a lot of patience on parents' part. So be patient. Remember that this is a progression, and we don't expect every baby to succeed on day one. So in closing, let's recap the key points. Watch for developmental readiness, not just age. Progress textures gradually through the 4 stages we discussed. Support the pincher grasp development by offering appropriate finger foods and letting them practice. They'll be messy, and that's okay. Focus on weekly nutrition rather than daily perfection. And understand that productive eating is messy, and that's part of learning. Most importantly, trust the process. This phase can feel so chaotic, and some days you're going to feel like a rock star, and other days you're going to feel like a failure. And that is completely fine. Setbacks are normal, especially when babies are sick or they're going through a developmental leap or there's a transition in the home with daycare and whatnot. So be patient. If this video helped you, please like and subscribe. Know that I have a Milk to Meals ebook in the description below. So if you're interested, check that out, and I'll see you on the next one.